Hi everybody, this is Shiro from Guided Soul-ution, and today I wanted to really address the topic of why we are never victims on this episode of From the Heart. So when we say the word victim, it sounds a little more dramatic. But when we think about like blame, faulting, experiencing something that you feel is something that was done to you, something that you feel was not your choice, something that was out of your control. So this is, of course, victimization, but also faulting, which includes ourselves, right? What I'm going to talk about eliminates all of that out of your vocabulary. Blame, fault, failure, victimization, of course, and subsequently, of course, to help to lead you to heal and ultimately integrate to become whole, right? So before we get into that, there are certain things that we have to establish, and that is your belief system. For example, do you believe that life is happening to you versus life is responding to you? That really kind of summarizes everything. Now, as long as you believe that life is happening to you, then there's no way of avoiding a sense of victimization and the heartbreak and the pain that comes with it. Because as long as you believe that life is happening to you, everything that happens to you feels like it's not your control choice. And with that, the pain comes in. Because remember, the experience of victimization in and of itself is not the source of the pain. It's the belief that it shouldn't be happening to us. That's what causes the pain. Again, very clear. The belief that it should not be happening to you is the cause of pain. It's the cause of stress, right? Because even stress, same thing. The belief, it's not the circumstance that's causing the stress. It's the belief that this shouldn't be happening that causes the stress. Because even if it's challenging, even if there's a lot of pressure, even if it's hard, when you are already aware that that's the game, that's part of the rule, that's what it was by your choice and you knew it, the ownership of it, of that experience alone will eliminate the stress. It will still become, there's a level of anxiety, whatever, but it's easily, it becomes soluble in that sense. So that's really important. So first, if you believe that it's happening to you, life is happening to you, then it will continue to have that blame, fault, victimization, and trauma. It will perpetuate. If you believe life is responding to you, and let me get further into that depth. What does that mean? Life is responding to us. And for many of you who are watching this, you're already aware, but let me just say this. Do you believe that you are just the flesh here and once you die, it's over? Or do you believe that you are a spirit, energy, consciousness, having this physical experience, this body, this physical reality experience is a temporary or a visitation? It's not where you're from, that you are a everlasting, eternal energy, consciousness, spirit, soul that's having physical experience. Now, regardless of how that belief may come about, whether it's religion or any kind of theory or belief system that you have, if you believe that you are a spirit, then the paradigm of life is responding to us will begin to connect. Now, because why? If we can recognize or acknowledge at least that we are a superconsciousness, sentient, divine, regardless of how we may feel about ourselves from time to time, if we can agree that we are a divine, sentient, sovereign beings, that alone already says we are never victims. Because why? A divine and sentient and sovereign being having this human experience that gives us the experience of sort of the illusion of flaw, imperfection, limitations, time, space, everything. We go back to the original root or the source that we started with prior to this incarnation, because of course, if we're an eternal spirit bestowing ourselves as human experience, then everything will make sense for you, what I'm about to say. Because even if it's religion and you believe in God and have some kind of faith, but you believe that God just chose this life for you, God designed you to be who you are, it sounds right, but it still removes that subtle ownership that you created you. And that's a very subtle but powerful directional difference. I respect all beliefs, but that belief system already forces you to sort of relinquish the ownership that you are always the author of your life. But if you can believe that you are the extension of some type of source, energy, consciousness, or what we would regard as God, the ocean, that if that God is the ocean, that we are the droplet from the ocean, containing the entire DNA of the ocean, meant to create an experience in human form in this physical reality matrix. At that instance already, victimization of any type, it becomes an illusion or a facade of experience. It is still real and it should feel real, but the belief that we are a victim completely now becomes obsolete. And therefore, any sense of blame or faulting and any sense of failure also begins to diminish. Because why? In the end, any experience of being a victim, like experiencing childhood abuse, for example, I was one too, and it is absolutely traumatizing, and the degree of the intensity of that experience or history of it can really become paralyzing and very difficult to heal at times. But here's the thing, the healing will not only begin, but will be very quick. And the integration that transmutes that pain and trauma into strength and wisdom is only but a belief away. Because usually our experience of any type of victimization in this lifetime is a recreation, most of the time is a recreation of the same experience that we've had in another lifetime that went unresolved, incomplete, unfinished, or that we just didn't like the way it ended, and we chose to re-script it into this lifetime. Even though it may be different players, different circumstance, you may be in a whole different role, but the essence of the experience is the thing that got recreated, rewritten. Why? Because you wanted to give yourself another chance at this. Because this is the thing, part of the life experience that we want to come and experience. And our nature is to always restore balance. So anything that is out of balance because of trauma, right, which causes us, right, trauma is when we are rejecting an aspect of our experience and selves, and it gets fragmented and gets lodged into that timeline, and we want to pull it back somehow to retrieve that fragmented aspect of ourselves, because the whole journey is about reaching wholeness, to reach a sense of singularity. And so whatever experience that comes into our reality, whether it's a person or experience like incidents, accidents, none of that can happen without your soul permission. It has to be already pre-agreed upon, even with the other party that's involved. And it's for each other's assistance of healing journey. Now, so you can understand that it has nothing to do with victim shaming or victim faulting, because that idea in and of itself doesn't qualify to even be entering into this conversation. We're talking about a paradigm where we are acknowledging sovereignty of our divine nature. In some ways, giving ourselves this temporary amnesia so that we can experience this limitation, sense of imperfection, sense of forgetting where we're from, and the journey is to remember and tapping into that power. And if nothing can enter without, because remember, even our death is not determined by someone else other than us. We cannot die without our soul permission, higher self, however you want to call this. And if nothing can happen without our soul permission, then we are never victims. Now, we will bestow ourselves the victim experience for two reasons. One, certainly to overcome the experience that we couldn't overcome in another lifetime, and we chose to re-script it, re-experience it, perhaps in a different fashion, but still the same essence of that experience, to see how we can address it, look at it, and to go about it differently than the last lifetime. And in that scenario, we're borrowing whoever this violator, incident, or any kind of circumstance, right? If it's a person, if it's an abusive relationship, for example, we're borrowing their story, which is their issue, right? That's their problem. That's something that they're trying to heal, understand, and integrate. Because in the end, the victim and the perpetrator or violator has an agreement or a common bond in the state of powerlessness. So the person that's abusive is in the state of powerlessness and is proactive, and the recipient is state of powerlessness in passive mode. And so we borrow that person's energy story and we choose to quantumly entangle with that person for us to trigger the experience of being robbed of our choice, which is the victimization experience. So, because remember, victimization it happens the moment we think that it's not our choice, that we're being forced to experience. But free will is never violated at the divine level. So when we feel our free will being robbed or violated, that sends what subsequently gets triggered emotionally, whether it's anger and pain and the sense of invalidation and all kinds of things that occurs, that's the thing that we wanted to come to surface from that experience. Because the victim can never heal as long as they're asking for the other person to take responsibility. Forgiveness is not about pardoning the other person. It is about us owning our portion of the experience and removing ourselves from the shared space with the other person. That's forgiveness. So that's when we heal. But as long as we're blaming somebody else, the narrative being, he made me feel this way, she hurt me, this accident left me with this trauma and fear. It will always repeat. And at any point in time this person heals, it's because there is an acceptance that had to happen. If it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't be here today. That's the moment healing and integration occurred. Now, I'm sorry, going back to the two reasons why we put ourselves in the victim situation. So one, for our own agenda. Second reason why we would put ourselves in that situation is because at the soul level, we've been there before. We know how to overcome it. We know how to handle it, but we volunteer to put ourselves in that position for the other party. Perhaps the other party that's involved is your soulmate, and you guys agreed that there's a soul contract agreement to say, hey, I'll take the punch for you so that you can really know without creating a chain reaction of karma with another. I'll be the one to absorb that because I know how to transmute that. I won't like it, but I know how to deal with that already. So I'll be the one to take the hit for you, and I'll make sure that my forgiveness toward you will be the thing that will trigger you to stop living that way, stopping that cycle, and begin to heal for yourself. Because whether you're a victim or the inflictor, in other words, the taker, and the person that is receiving the experience, right? Or the one that is victimized. I don't like to say perpetrator, but violator of any type is the one that takes or inflicts or instigates. But in the end, at the core, no matter which side, it's the same. The need to heal, to integrate, to allow love to come into a space that has been absent of love. So it's very important that whenever you find yourself saying, oh, he hurt me, she hurt me, he abused me, the way you're saying it creates the experience. Here's the thing. When I went through my childhood abuse, I went through a very unique experience. I was fortunate enough to experience it in a way where it was coerced, manipulated, and semi-forced. But it wasn't like, fortunately for me, it wasn't like rape or absolute force and not violent. It was a coerced situation. But I remember feeling a sense of compassion for the person, because I can see, as this person was doing what that person was doing to me, that there was a sense of madness, sense of pain in this person. Something was wrong, off. Now, of course, given that my sole purpose was to be in this path of being a spiritual counselor, it makes sense that I volunteered to be in that position to experience that. And there's definitely something I needed to learn from that. And there was definitely a sense of trauma. I went through years of questioning my sexuality and everything. But it was a sense of another detached part of myself watching the experience, knowing that it was meant to happen for me. Now, it's not going to feel like that for most people who's gone through, especially when they're in a much more early childhood, and it happened with someone in family, for example, like abuse and molestation and so forth. But regardless of the severity of the experience, the mechanism of healing is the same. It starts with the acceptance that it needed to happen. But let's take it another step further to say, we are always scripting our story. Nothing happens by coincidence. And no one else makes it happen for us either. People think that, like, well, God must have had a plan. No, you had a plan, because you're God. You're the extension of God. You're part of God. You see, we don't seem to still truly embody the sense that we are gods. Religion says children of God. Same thing. If you're a child of God, you are God. And you are, as a God, you are always writing your own story in collaboration with others around you that share the reality experience with you. Even if it looks like a complete stranger, as long as that person entered your experience, it's part of your story. And the denial of that is going to be the thing that's going to perpetuate the pain, perpetuate the sense of insecurity and fear and concern that your life is left to some kind of chance. So if you are experiencing any sense, all right, it doesn't have to be abuse. It doesn't have to be come with a label of trauma. But if you have a narrative of any type of saying, or blame or faulting, it's not my fault, same thing. If you're in that experience, it's not a fault, but it's your responsibility. You're accountable to the fact that you authored it in your experience. Your authority over your story has never left you. And it doesn't come with a strenuous practice. Make your belief system very clear. Do you believe that life is happening to you randomly? Or do you believe life is responding to you? Meaning that you're transmitting something on a frequency, vibrational level that's bringing something back to you in both positive and negative polarity. There's no separation between the positive and negative. Remember, everything always exists in both polarity, and it's always trying to balance itself. So positive can't be positive without negative here. So what we regard negative experience has an important positive reason. So you can't just acknowledge that when it comes to positive things, I'm manifesting. No, you're manifesting everything, positive and negative. But there's a reason, there's a purpose. And the moment you experience something that you don't want, the first question we must ask ourselves is, what purpose is this experience holding for me? What is it trying to tell me? What is it trying to teach me? What did I write here? What am I trying to restore in the balance? Where am I out of balance with? And this goes beyond victimization. Any sense of disappointment, any sense of hurt, heartbreak, what troubles you has a reason. But it extends itself because some people are boasting about being a victim, and they don't see that they're perpetuating the victimized experience wherever they go. And as long as they keep asking the world to change for them, they will never heal. They can go on to become the activist of the world to change, but it's not serving them well in the highest level of consciousness. If you're wanting to ascend in your consciousness, if you want to expand your consciousness, to break through the illusion of limitations, to access the infinite wisdom and intelligence, and to really let love rule your life, trying to change the world is not going to help. And the paradox is, when we address our own healing, when we take full responsibility for everything that we manifested in our lives as part of the greater good and divine reason and orchestration, we end up changing the world that way. certainly highly recommend for all of you to tap into Dr. Hugh Len's story. I'm going to attach the link below. It's about the Hawaiian healing modality of Ho'oponopono. But I've been very excited about that. I've known about it, but I just never really deeply connected with it until recent, as to how powerful it is when we take responsibility for every aspect of our experience in both sides of light and shade, positive and negative, joy and sadness, everything. Not only are we being of greatest service to ourselves, but we end up creating the greatest tsunami of change to the world around us, wherever we go. I hope and I trust that this added value to you in one way or another. If you have any questions, if you would like an in-deep personal counsel and reading, please feel free to reach out to me. All the information will be included below. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment. And if you'd like to see more of these types of episodes from me, please subscribe. Please hit like if you can. Feel inspired to. It would really help to expose this message to more people. And of course, hit that bell to be notified for your new episodes that I upload. But I hope that this really was a good message for those of you that's been asking that question. Be the seeker of the truth, your truth, from love and light, and of course, from the heart. Thank you for listening.